How's it going, guys? I want to do a short little video here on ethics and sales as it relates to dog training, naturally. But I was listening to another guy online, another YouTube person, and he was talking about how to do phone calls, how to set appointments for your dog training business when someone calls you, And he was talking about how you want to tell them about what they want to hear about what their dog is going to look like. And he said, well, wouldn't you like to see your dog off leash at the park? And if it starts running towards a squirrel, you can stop it on a dime and have it come right back to you. And when you tell the dog down, it drops and it doesn't move, and you can go get a hamburger off the grill, and just going on about all this crazy shit. And keep in mind, you haven't even seen the dog yet. You're on the phone. This is the initial call. Someone called in. You haven't never met them, never seen their dog. Don't start telling them stuff like that. There is absolutely no reason to get into that stuff. It's a bunch of sales shit. It's a bunch of bullshit. I'm not saying that you can't get their dog to that level of obedience, but I've been training dogs long enough to know that there's a lot of dogs that you can't get to that level of obedience, not in the kind of time frame that a board and train program typically allows. And I'm talking, 2 to 4 weeks. And if you think you can get any dog in the world trained to that level in 2 weeks, I would say you probably haven't been training dogs very long. Because I've had over a couple thousand dogs in for boarding and training. I've had dogs come in that were rescues that were like feral coyotes. These are dogs that were shipped up from the south, that grew up under a barn, that never saw anything except that little barn and that little farm area. It was like a hoarder situation. These dogs, not aggressive, but just want to run. Whenever they got a chance to run away from people, they would run away from people. I've had a lot of crazy messed up dogs that if you could get just some basic obedience with them, they were doing really well. It's just like people. I would tell people all the time, dogs are similar to children in the sense that they're all trainable, but we're talking about in what time frame. What would constitute a reasonable time frame? There are some kids that they're not going to be able to go to school with our regular kids in public school. It doesn't mean that they can't grow up to get a job, a very simple job, maybe bagging groceries. They may even be able to get their own apartment or get away from some type of care. They may be able to live independently. But they're not like everybody else. And I'm not saying this to put anybody down. I'm just saying we all learn at different levels. We all have different abilities. And just because the average dog can do things, 1, 2, 3, especially over the past several years with all the rescues and stuff coming up, there's a lot of special needs dogs out there, And it's 20 years ago, I kind of felt that way too, that I could make anything happen, because the first year, the first dogs that came in, they were great. I was getting these, hunting labs, and I was getting like people would say, oh, the dog's crazy. No, I just had a ton of drive, and it just loved to work. And I can remember many dogs going home off leash in any situation, down them anywhere. I was very comfortable with them in a public park off leash. But as the dogs started adding up, all of a sudden you get these outliers. You get these dogs that were really, like the people come in and say, all I want you to do is get this dog to come when called. And when someone comes in and says something like that, that should be, your little lights should go off in your head about, okay, what have you done to get the dog to come up to this point? And then they start listing off the trainers, the tools, the e-collars, the clickers, the food, the this, the that. And there are some dogs that, like, as soon as they get off that leash, they're friggin' gone. For whatever reason, anxiety, whatever the reason. So you never know what's out there. You never know what's coming in the door. So don't always under-deliver, under-promise, over-deliver. But if you under-promise and you can't over-deliver, but you deliver something decent, they're still going to be happy, But the last thing you want to do is promise the world on the front end and then have to be backpedaling the whole time when they come in. Oh, the dog has really got a lot of issues. I've never seen anything like this. Because you're going to feel like crap. They're going to think, oh, well, do I get my money back or what happened? Because you told me I was going to have off leash and this, that, and the other thing. I don't have any of that now, So anyway, treat the dogs the way you would treat your own dog. Be realistic with people. You don't need to promise anybody the world. People are reasonable. The more you promise, the more people will expect. And the unhappier they will be if you can't meet every expectation.